welcome to the Gutter Bookshop for our first book launch in 19 months. So it is lovely, it is absolutely lovely to be doing this launch with Philippa to kind of restart the Gutter. Doing events has always been a big part of what we do, and working with the LGBT community is also a big thing of what we do. So to get us back into business with an LGBT launch is just the best for us. So thank you all so much for joining us here this evening. Just a couple of bits of housekeeping. After we've done the speechy bits, Philippa's going to stand up here and sign some books for some people, so do just queue in an orderly, civilised fashion with a bit of social distancing, and Philippa will sign books. Philippa's told me to tell you that everybody's going for drinks at Street 66, just around the corner after the event, so when we turn the wine tap off, you're more than welcome to go round the corner for a little drinky with Philippa afterwards. Just to be aware, because of the way we are at the minute, we do have to keep the doors open throughout, just to keep ventilation going. Inevitably, a bin lorry will decide to come down the street at exactly when Philippa makes her speech. We'll do our best, but please, if there's outside noise, please do just try and ignore it. We do our best. I'll ask Philippa to speak into the microphone so you can all hear her. On that note, I'm going to hand over to the guest of the evening, the book writer, the book launcher. Please welcome Philippa Ryder.
I suppose it helps if I turn the paper the right way. Thanks to everybody for coming. It's absolutely amazing to see so many of my friends, family and colleagues here. I will get emotional. Special thanks to Bob for hosting the event, and to Jamie and Chris from Dublin Pride for capturing the moment on video. Standing here before you, my family, friends and colleagues, is an honour. I think the last time I addressed a group like this was at our renewal ceremony in 2009, when Helen and I celebrated our love, our friendship in the Unitarian Church in Stephen's Green. And that was just one special day of many that we have had together. Helen's there in the front. I look forward to many, many other days with her in the future. So what is a memoir? According to Wikipedia, it should have drama, relevance, authenticity, a character arc, and after effect. It should entertain the reader, make you think, make you feel the emotion the writer is experiencing. It should also allow you to see the journey undertaken and leave a lasting impression. So that's what I was aiming for when I wrote the book. I kept a conversational tone all the way through it, and it was a case of I got lost at times, because originally the book was 250,000 words. Then my editor said, okay, who's down at the back there, Mary? I'd love her to say a few words, but she's refusing to. So originally it was 250,000 words, then it was cut down to 125,000, and then Mary said, well, no, 70,000 at the most. I managed to persuade her by refusing to cut any more than 83,000 words. So that's the current length. Declan, who's my oldest friend from school when I went to St. Benildus in Kilmacud, he suggested about 10 years ago that I start putting a few words down on paper. So I did. I had a notebook and I put a few words down on paper, and then they just blossomed into, as I say, the 250,000 words that it was initially. And since then it's just been a case of editing and cutting and culling and trimming, and it's like pulling teeth, because these are my words and this is my story, and it's so difficult to leave anecdotes out and so on, and elements of my life that I really wanted to share with people. But there is a limit. So I'm in negotiations with Mary to do part 2 of the memoir. Mary? So the book is very personal. It's very intimate. And I've tried to keep it, as I say, in a conversational tone. I pull you in gently, and then I introduce some drama. At least that's the intention. Certain passages were very difficult to write, and many tears were shed as I remembered events, arguments, and various anecdotes from the past that just evoked the emotion of the time. It was extremely difficult, and even reading the book now, I still feel extremely emotional. Something I hope that comes through as you read. Some of the anecdotes are funny, some heartbreakingly serious, and here there's a couple that I'd like to just quickly read out if you haven't read the book already, to make you laugh. So there's one on page 140. The round room in the mansion house was full of attractive tuxedo-clad men with equally attractive women in some stunning dresses. As we entered the beautiful room, Gloria, Ireland's LGBTQ+ choir, were singing a funny song, and the audience were entranced, some singing along with them. We were seated at a very large round table with 10 others, all straight couples it seemed. The meal was enjoyable, the company entertaining, and there was no hint from any around the table that they suspected we were anything other than two women out for the evening. Indeed, at one point, while Emer was in the ladies' room, one of the women asked me something. "I can see there's a spark between you. I was wondering if there was a romantic element to it," she asked, smiling. A bit taken aback, I wasn't quite sure how to respond, but managed to get out, "Well, we're very good friends, but we're both married." All eyes at the table turned towards me, and one of the guys said with a glint in his eyes, "Oh, so you're lovers, and your husbands don't know." And 176 has a little anecdote. I was part of the steering committee of Transgender Europe, and so I would be flying over to Europe on a regular basis to various meetings and so on. So on my way back through Schiphol Airport, I was still had a male passport at that time, and it was a case of presenting that and hoping that the person checking the passport was going to allow me through. I had a backup, however, in case they didn't. So I approached the airport gate, noticing an older, stern-looking security official checking passports. I handed my passport to him, somewhat nervously. "I'm sorry, madam," he said. "This appears to be your husband's passport. Would he have yours?" Excuse me," I said, "if you wouldn't mind reading this certificate." And I produced my letter from the psychologist, stating I was trans and explaining my situation. It was one of the very few times that I had to produce the document, and it was somewhat battered from being in my purse for perhaps 3 years. The security official's face softened, and he smiled. "Madam, thank you. That's perfectly fine." And he lowered his voice. "I wish you well on your personal journey." So my story of transition was made possible by the love, acceptance and understanding that was shown and continues to be shown to me by my family here in front, friends and work colleagues. And you're all here to support me, and it means so much to me. The book tells the story of my personal journey. It may not be suitable or possible for every trans person to do the journey that I undertook, which was a gradual, slow, and with me desperately wanting to bring my family with me, but knowing that the possibility existed, as it does for many trans people, to lose them. Everybody is on their own journey through life, and there may be occasions when we need to seek out help. Please do. I did. But one of the reasons I wrote these words was to show a positive story. We all know how important the personal stories were in the two recent referendums. And I hope that by telling my story, I can help to combat some of the attacks and negativity we've seen against trans people around the world and even here in Ireland. I was anxious to promote a positive message about trans people I hope I've succeeded. While I could have talked at length about trans rights, and indeed I have, and all the associated issues, this is not really the venue to raise all of them. Nonetheless, I feel it's important to acknowledge the amazing work being done by Tenny and Sarah Phillips, LGBT Ireland and Paula Fagan, and belong to and Moninia Griffith in the trans rights field. Review of the Gender Recognition Act, the situation facing our young trans community, the state of trans healthcare in Ireland, and the discrimination, bullying, and even violence on our streets and in our homes, workplaces, and schools are just some of the pressing issues that need to be addressed. I would ask everyone here today to be a trans ally and raise these issues when you have the opportunity with your local and national government. Almost every interview I've done in promoting the book has ended with two questions. What advice would you give to young trans people? And do you wish you could have transitioned earlier, maybe in your teens and early 20s? The landscape around trans rights has changed so much, even in the past 10 years, that I wouldn't presume to answer for young trans people. But the one thing that carried me through was self-belief. I envisioned the future I wanted as Philippa and strove for it. From what I see at events and online, lack of confidence and belief in themselves is not something that this generation of young trans people are lacking. And for the second question, I wouldn't change a single thing in my life. If I had transitioned earlier, I wouldn't have had the wonderful experience of meeting Helen and a few years later becoming a parent to the amazing Jenny. So to finish up, thanks to Mary, my editor, who's down the back, Dee, our social media guru from Mercia, Deirdre Roberts, my publicity, and of course Catherine Zappone, who so kindly wrote a beautiful foreword, giving me far too much credit for the advance of trans rights in Ireland. Thanks to my colleagues in the Property Registration Authority, and Gillian and Dermot and all the team from Under the Rainbow. Together we've started to show the government and the corporate sector the importance of equity, diversity and inclusion in the workplace and across society. And finally, thank you all who have in various ways stood by me and supported me in reaching this moment. I'm so glad to officially launch this book into the world and to celebrate with everyone here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming out on this wet, grey October evening. It's great to have such a crowd back in the shop. And thank you for being so understanding on the door about what we have to do to make these things happen these days. As a good bookseller, it is my job to remind you that we're selling copies of My Name is Philippa here this evening. And I'm sure Philippa would be delighted to sign one for you, so do pick one up there. Remind you again that drinks around at Street 66, so if you do want to make your way round, do, and as soon as the signing's round, everybody would go round there. Just before we finished, Philippa's wife Helen would just like to say a quick word, a quick surprise word.
Oh. God, I have no idea what it's going to say.
No, I'm not going to tell the truth. As you can see at the front, there's that gorgeous portrait which was done by Eva O'Donovan for the Chrysalis series, which featured a lot of trans women here in Dublin and around the country. And I mean, you recognise Stacey, Sarah had a beautiful portrait, Vanessa and so forth. We're retiring next year, and as an adjunct to that, and in celebration of this event, we bought it. Jenny and I bought it for you, Philippa. So that painting was loaned by Eva, but what Philippa didn't know. Hi, Eva. Yay! Wonderful artist.
Thank you. So
Happy retirement. Happy book launch. You're having the portrait that you always loved.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Okay, so we are now officially launched from My Name is Philippa. Thank you so much for joining us again, and enjoy the rest of your evening.